Okay, so we're working on these on this Lovespoon with the vines and the flowers, and I did one last night. It's not complete, but I got a lot done on it in about I would say two and a half hours. So let's talk about what we got to do here. Now here's the piece that has the pattern on it. If you remember, I cut it out of a 1-inch thick piece, then I sliced it in half this way. I've got 2 pieces, so that saved me having to cut the scrolling part twice, so that saves me a lot of time. But the back is pretty rough off the bandsaw, if you can see here. So all I did was I used my belt sander, and I sanded the back on the belt sander, and I actually did even a little bit of, I could do a little bit of rounding of the back of the spoon on there too. So then it's actually easier normally to do the spoon back and the hollow before you do any of the detailing on there, just because especially on this one, which is very thin. This is walnut, which is a wonderful wood to carve. Very enjoyable to carve this, and the finish is going to be outstanding when I put a little oil and wax or whatever I do on there. But there's a lot of very thin parts and cross grain here, so I wouldn't want to be working on this with heavy pressure holding this handle. I'm going to snap something off. So almost always on a spoon, I'm going to do the bowl of the spoon first. This is just a decorative spoon, so it doesn't have a lot of function. So the hollow is just kind of for appearance, as is the back. Now, one of the things, if you're going to do a Lovespoon carving, you have to decide, is this going to be hanging on the wall, and therefore you're only going to carve the front of it, or are you going to carve both sides? And I think it's good to do both sides. I've started rounding it, but I haven't really finished both sides. Especially on this one, we have this thin round vine. It's going to be really noticeable if you carve that round, and it's going to really look nice. And people want to pick it up, hold it in their hands, and feel it. And of course, they're going to flip it over. So what I'm for carving the bowl, the back side is simple. You're just going to use some sort of straight knife and just take chips off the back and round it, and then of course this one's going to get sanded. So I've already taken some I believe 100 grit sandpaper I took on this. Walnut sands very easily and nicely and comes up with a nice finish. So I'll talk about sandpaper later. Let's talk about some of the tools that you could use to scoop out the inside here. There's a whole variety of choices. Now this is a very shallow hollow. If I had a deep one, if I was doing like a ladle, then I would need a much deeper scoop. I might even use something like this. This is designed for this purpose. It has an edge on 2 sides, so you could go either way depending upon the grain. And you just basically, you're doing this type of action. I find this really difficult to sharpen. I've never really quite gotten it. One of these days I'm just going to spend an hour and get it really sharp because it's useful. Also, here's another choice. This is actually a plane. It's got a blade in here that you can adjust, and it's kind of tricky. It's got to be super sharp, and it's got to be adjusted just right so it doesn't dig in. And you're gonna come in this way, using the sole. This is like a sole of a plane. It really is a plane on here. And you're going to just cut through this way. Again, if you're going the wrong way in the grain, you're going to have trouble. So that's good for, I think, larger spoons. We have a lot more area to work. And you also have the grain going the right way. The next choice might be, well, I'll take this one, this Denny tool. Now these come in a left-handed and a right-handed one, so obviously this is a righty. Okay, a lefty would be pulled toward me with a blade on the other side, or the lefty I could push away from me the other way. So again, if you have a grain problem, a direction problem on the grain, you have to probably have both of these. I have tape on here because I choke up on this, and I found the tang kind of rough on the inside of my finger here. Then you have a gouge, which is a spoon shape, okay, So there's a quick dip here in the end of the tool, and then you have, this is more of a long bent tool, and this is a smaller one. Not as deep. That's maybe a 5 on there, and this is deeper. That's probably a 7. Okay, so and the technique on all of these, I'll take this one because I really like this one. This is the one I used to rough this out in the beginning, and it's very comfortable. You got the tool here. I would recommend anytime you're carving a spoon handle in the palm of your hand that you have a glove on. I'm still getting used to this one. I got this one from somebody, I think he's called the Carving Glove Guy or something like that on the internet. And I'm not quite used to this because this is all leather in the palm. It's very stiff. I could have probably just gotten, it's Kevlar with leather on top. So this is for really, if you're carving into your hand and you're going to hit it, you know, this will protect you pretty well. But it's kind of stiff and clunky. So with a small piece like this, I feel like I've got a, you know, I'm on the moon with a space glove on. But anyway, the technique using all of these tools here is going to be the same, and that is going to be to carve from the rim. So the first thing you want to do, let's go back and decide how big of a, if any, flat rim you want to have here. I recommend you have a little bit of a flat that'll just round into the bowl, not a sharp edge, but not to bring it right up to the very edge. And what I do is I just, once I have the outside of my the bowl shaped, which I want to do first, take off any flats and any high spots, and then I can just take my finger like this and just follow around and get my edge. And this is a small spoon, it's a shallow, so I have a very small, about 3/16, maybe, not even that, less than an eighth really, a little over a 16th. So and then what I'm going to do from that point, see I have it here, this tool is, it's doable I guess, but not as easy to get that sharp edge. But for the main part of the bowl, I'm using this and scooping out in this motion. But I always want to go from the edge in toward the center and ending in the center all the way around. So I'm coming in from every angle here. I find that the handheld, the gouge, is a little easier to get. You can set it right on that edge and then come in. Okay, so if you have a deep bowl, this gouge gets you out of there quick, so you don't get stuck in the middle. This is a shallow one. I really like this little palm tool. It's just a little starter one, but I've got it sharpened up pretty well, and it's a low, you know, it's a small sweep there. It's only like a 3 or so. So, and I'm just going to come in toward the center. Now if it's really sharp, I can go cross grain here. It's actually easier than trying to take it out any other way. It's really the only way to go. Now if you're going to leave the tool marks in it, this is great. You just take little tiny shavings and you just keep getting smaller and smaller cuts. I'm actually going to sand this whole thing out or scrape it out. So now that's the next tool I wanted to talk about. Well, you know what? First, let me talk about the other tools that I use to carve this. For the main shaping of the vines, also the back of the bowl, I'm using a nice sharp bench knife. Okay. For getting in a little tighter on there, I have a similar tool, but a detail one, a little 3/4 inch detail knife, nice and sharp. Right here, after everything's carved and sanded, then you can put these little veins in here. So I have a little dockyard V tool, but really any V tool would work to get these little cuts in here. Now for the flower, if you look at the original pattern, this one's a little bigger. The center is bigger and this flower is bigger, but I like this one. And what I used was, first I shaped the outer part here, and that I just simply did a scoop cut like this, paying attention to my grain. So I had to go down on this one, up on this one, up on this one, and down on this one, obviously turning the work. Okay, so I got a nice little scoop there for the outer one, and then for the inner flower I very carefully scored it. But what I also found worked very well was this little dockyard U gouge, and this is the largest one in the set. I believe this is 5mm. So what I did was I actually used that for the radius of the outside of my petals. So I cut not quite on a 90, but I cut down in that way, and then I scoop in to meet it and pop out, being very careful not to lift up, the petal and break it off. So, and that's where you don't want to go absolutely perpendicular on your first cut, just a little bit of an outward angle, and then meet to the center. Don't force it. If it doesn't come out, come back and pop it with that. So I did that all the way around. Even flip it over and use the other side of it for the inner round part of it there. Okay. And then I can also get in with my little detail knife and clean out what I want to clean out in there. Okay, now for the inner part I did the same thing. I used the radius of this. Now if you want a bigger center and a bigger flower, then you have to use a larger gouge. But what I did, again, on an angle from the center out, not straight down. If you make this like a plateau, straight up and down, flat, it's going to pop right off there. So if you go on an angle for this round, and you just follow the radius of your gouge all the way around till you get a nice circle, and then coming in to that again till the chip comes loose. And again, trying not to pop it, because if it's not ready to come out, you're going to pop off that center piece. So you got to be careful with that. So that's the tool I used for the center. And then to clean this up, you can use sandpaper, but I was given this set of flex cut scrapers, which is really a handy little set to have here, and you can see all the different profiles. So this is a little tiny pointy one. Here's a round, but it also has a large concave shape there. Here's two really large concave radius and an angle, and you got a little point there, and you got a skew. Here's a very mild outward radius, again two large inside radiuses. So all the edges of this are basically ground flat. Okay, and so this needs to be not filed down, but honed down flat with a fine stone. And then when you grind this edge, it leaves a sharp edge there, and that really sharp edge is what does the work. That's going to scrape the wood off. Now what's really important is that you go with the grain, okay, and not fight it. But this inside radius will work great in here. Any of these, this would work good. This would work good inside the bowl also. Okay, but any kind of a convex shape, and you're just getting in. You should be getting. You'll get kind of a sawdust, but you should really be getting almost, ideally, a little tiny shaving, and that takes off those little highs that you've created with the gouge. And I think is actually a lot more effective than sandpaper, and it leaves a nicer surface. Now what I'm going to do probably at the end was I'll hit the whole thing with a finer grade of sandpaper. And even on these other round shapes, you have all these shapes to choose from, and you can just take this tool, and again, you got to be paying attention to the grain, just as if you were carving it, because if you go the other way, you're going to get a not good result. You're not going to get a smooth surface. So if you go with the grain on this, and this is sharp, you're going to get a nice sharp, nice clean surface, and you just keep following it around. If you feel that it's not giving you a nice smooth surface, you're going the wrong way, so just switch. I just keep moving the work as I scrape until I get a nice smooth, and that's a lot nicer. It takes off all those highs that were left by the knife. Okay, and then you can go to sandpaper and finish it up. Okay, so that's one that I need to just finish up. I'll come back and show you some of those the techniques that I did on this one, and then I'll also show you I'll have this one finished. I'll work on this one a little bit and show you a couple spots that are tricky, and then I'll finish this one up. Basically, it's a pretty easy project to do. I thought it was going to be really delicate and tricky. Might have been kind of scary to try to do that in basswood, but I think in walnut it's really going to be beautiful. I also left in some of the outer edge of the wood, the lighter early wood there, closer to the bark, so that's going to be really beautiful when that gets finished.